Hello, YouTube. This week I go. This week's review will be free. The biopic on Dale Sr. Dale Earnhardt Sr. Made in 2004 and an ESPN TV movie. Directed by Russell Mulcahy, who best known for directing Highlander. Alongside Barry Pepper as the titular Dale Sr. And a nod to J.K. Simmons as Ralph Earnhardt. For a TV movie, like I say, it's very well executed, well written, and plot. And when I first watched it, I had to say I couldn't tell if I was watching a movie or a documentary, minus a lot of factual errors. In fact, the only thing they got right was getting an actor that looked exactly like Dale Sr. and the race cars. Well, Dale's cars anyway. A lot of major flaws with some stories in the childhood of growing up. For one thing, Ralph Earnhardt didn't work in a mill. He was a Chevrolet mechanic. And how they omitted the Bud Moore years of Dale's career. But then again, I kind of had a feeling, kind of like in the documentary Dale and this one, they omitted that because of how much I believe Chevrolet might have chipped in on the funding sponsoring on this because Bud Moore was a Ford team back in the day, and Childress and Osterlund were GM. Osterlund, who was in real life was Dale's first Cup owner at a full time level. And also got to give a good shout out to Sean Bridgers, who played an excellent Neil Bonnet in the real Bonnet of a member of the Alabama gang. Ooh, like I say, those back in the '80s and '70s and '80s, those Alabama boys could drive. Regularly, yeah, they're almost one of the few ones that could compete with Dale Sr. And a lot of the big major mess up is how they always portrayed the portrayal of Darrell Waltrip, because between the real ones and the movie ones, I mean the real ones everybody knows were close friends, while in the movie they portrayed Darrell as a jerk, as an asshole, and practically the biggest douche in NASCAR at the time. And that was just wrong because that was just one of the biggest inaccuracies. Alongside that, and although they did get in the early years of Ralph, focused on Ralph's career, was how they did an excellent job on the race cars, because like Dale Jr. in his early years and Dale in the Bush series, which is now Xfinity, number 8, which was Ralph's number, which we all know later became Dale Jr.'s, and also back to the whole Ford thing. Another bit of a lie I had to say would have been the whole Richard Childress running moonshine thing. That kind of, I doubt that one was true. Made a good movie, but very inaccurate. I mean, that was just one of the dumbest inaccuracies I could think of, because I watched the biographies on the man, and they never once mentioned that. They just mentioned that he sold concessions before he was a driver, and then later on as the champion owner. Because Childress was one of them guys who was I'm gonna say, it was not so good driver, but became one of the greatest owners in NASCAR history. But I got to say, back to the Darrell Waltrip thing, I say good acting for an inaccurate character, kind of like with Neil Bond, because because they ought to just omitted some scenes of, or like some, or added some things like where he's doing it, or like in the phase when Neil Bonnet was temporarily retired because of a accident in Darlington in 1990. They could have showed him doing like an interview because later on, or doing a clip of the show Winners, because that was the one thing he would have did if he stayed on as announcer instead of going back in back on inside the race car. And yeah, we not go there because anybody knows, any of my audience that actually knows racing, I'll just say, y'all, out of respect, we looked that up. And which brings another point of mess up, was how they always had to lead it to the, how the movie started off at the 2001 Daytona 500, which we all know Senior died at that race, but that was just wrong to do a movie about the man. I mean, it's like Bohemian Rhapsody, where they didn't focus at the end of him dying of AIDS, of Freddie Mercury dying of AIDS, and they didn't need to do like a loop that footage, loop footage of that terrible day in racing history, because that was bad when it happened, and the media kept looping it. I mean, if they ever do a reboot of this movie, or get somebody like big budget, next I just recommend ending it at the 98 Daytona 500 when Dale finally won after 20 years of trying and 20 years of frustration, as Mike Joy put it, or the 2000 Texas race, or the 2000 Winston 500 at Talladega, which could have been Dale's 76th and final cup win, which he famously went from 18 to first in the last 3 laps, or more fitting, where he could have ended it at the 2000 Texas race when Junior finally got his first win. That would have made a more better ending. I mean, that, just be a little bit more accurate next time. But I do admit that they kind of like, and which goes to show they ought to just do a lot more racing legends. Kind of need to get biopics and such. I mean, every year there's a football movie. How about more racing movies? I mean, for example, they ought to do a Richard Petty movie with Benedict Cumberbatch as Petty, as the King. Now that would be Oscar gold. But I gotta give the soundtrack a bit for a TV movie. Actually, very, very good for on the soundtrack, because I mean, start off with Farron Young's "Hello Walls" and "Along with You," then a whole scene at Dale's rookie of the year party where they played, where you just hear Skinner's "What's Your Name" in the background. That and a feature later on in a conversation on a lake off duty, as a father-son talk between Junior and Senior in that, when they play Three Doors Down's as Kryptonite. I gotta say that was a excellent take. Now they ought to do that was for a TV movie, pretty much best soundtrack for a TV movie. But honestly, I'm gonna have to say Guest Villains gets a, no pun intended, 3 out of 5. Because they got the race cars right. Although I should mention that they omitted a lot of the Bud Moore years, which Dale was in the number 15 and started his partnership with Wrangler. That was asked to be a bit much, kind of like much, because That's kind of also a flaw in the documentary deal that came out a couple of years later, which might as well this kind of counts as its review because, well, they're both about about the Intimidator. Although I'm surprised they didn't put Dale's song from the flopped NASCAR Sings album, Hard Charger, in the soundtrack. I mean, that would have made a good montage for the '80s years. Which means, yeah, you got to be a total fan to understand that, just to appreciate that album. And of course, the others did like a little more. Although they did in the Ford one was, after the Ford thing I kept trying to mention was, they did. Although I give did the '96 paint number '96 Torino from the '78 '78 World 600. Although the accuracy, I doubt that was on TV because the first full time race was 1979. Or I say full time and flag to flag. But that was an excellent take for on that one. Overall, nope. Like I just said, no pun intended, of a 3 out of 5. I'd give it 5 out of 5 if it was a little bit more accurate and they gave it a little bit more respectable ending. I mean, I mean, God, that was just wrong. And overall, I hope you enjoyed this week's review slash recommendation.